Morning, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
Are you ready for worship? Are you sitting comfortably?
Yeah.
Stay in England, and then we'll begin. So, good morning, everyone. I have worship this morning, and it's good to see you all there. And this morning, I'm going to be talking about Jesus and shame and how he helps people with shame. So it could have been one of the most awkward moments in her life, and yet it became the most amazing conversation that she would ever have. There she was, trying to avoid the gossips and the shamesayers by going to the well in the middle of the day. And then she meets a complete stranger, this man called Jesus, who seems to know a little too much about her past life. But this conversation is different from any other conversation she's ever had with a man, because he treats her with respect. He talks to her as an equal in a way that conveys, I know all about you, and it doesn't make any difference to the value you have in my eyes. He banters with her gently. He describes her outside the box relationship as a plain and simple fact, without criticism, judgment, or contempt. And then he entrusts her with the greatest secret of all, that he is the Messiah. Jesus is so skilled at having these shame-free conversations every time he encounters shame-filled human beings. He uses the conversation to lift them up and not put them down. And to Zacchaeus, the pilfering tax collector, who's rejected and shamed by his whole community, he simply says, hey, Zach, let's do lunch. And Jesus's love melts his pain-hardened heart and teaches him how to love again. And when the Pharisees bring Jesus a woman caught in the very act of adultery, he handles the situation with exquisite care. He knows that every human being has memories that fill them with shame, things they've done and said to others, things that have been done and said to them. And at this moment, there's a crowd of men triumphantly shaming a battered and betrayed woman. And so Jesus bends down and simply writes a few cryptic words in the sand, the bare minimum to rebalance the situation, to remind these men that their lives are broken too. They also have shameful experiences in their past. And he touches their hearts where the shame has bruised them, but maintains their public dignity, hoping to inspire their empathy for others who are being shamed. And when he is all alone with the woman, he does not heap shame in shattered shards upon her head, but he lifts her face in his hands and looks deep into her searching eyes and tells her that he does not condemn her either. And he gives her a new start and a second chance. And when the extravagant fragrance of Mary's perfume breaks over Jesus' feet, Simon looks down on her with contempt, despising her promiscuous past. And then Judas shames her for being selfish and not selling the perfume to provide for the poor. They are both self-justifying, self-righteous, arrogant, proud. It doesn't matter how Mary feels, as long as they look good, as long as their secret shame is not revealed. And Jesus cuts into their contempt and lifts up Mary so that her story of extravagant love will be told forever. And for the remorseful thief on the shameful cross, there is no criticism. Instead, Jesus musters all his strength. He fights painfully for enough breath to let this man know, you will definitely be with me in paradise. Peter is broken. Everyone knows he denied his best friend, that he lied about his relationship with Jesus because he was afraid. And now Peter is so filled with shame. He feels worthless. He's broken. He doesn't even know how to find and face Jesus. So Jesus comes to find him and gives him one of the most important jobs in the world. Peter, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. And he heals 3 denials of their friendship with 3 powerful affirmations of his love. And one of the greatest stories of shame healing ever told must be the story of the prodigal son and the father, who is the master of shame-free relationships. So when his selfish and disrespectful son comes home, broken and full of shame, he runs towards him, laughing with joy, and he hugs him close until he can hardly breathe, and he covers all of his brokenness with a brand new linen robe. He gives him a golden ring as a sign of the restored relationship, and he throws a party to celebrate. And there is not one single condemning glare in his loving face, or one single word of reproach or criticism or judgment in his loving voice, because any spark of shame might send him on his way again. And Jesus is the master of these shame-free conversations. In each of these conversations, he is interacting with people who are deeply broken by shame, sexual shame, relational shame, societal shame, the shame of failure, exposure, contempt, and a bruised reed he does not break. Shame is one of the most painful human experiences. We can see from each of these Bible stories, shame isolates people from their friends, their family, their communities. People try to dull the pain of shame with all kinds of addictions. They find ways to shame others so that finally there's someone who is more shameful than them, or they choose to run away from everything they have known and make a new life where no one knows about their past. And in the very worst cases, people who are shamed might even try to take their own lives. We all experience shame. My first memorable encounter with shame was at school when I was 4. It was so bad that what my teacher did to me then would mean that she would be struck off immediately if that happened today. What she did isolated from my classmates. I dreaded going to school. I remember my mum peeling me off the lampposts along the road as I would run and cling to each one so I didn't have to go. And I didn't really have the words to talk about my experience. To protect myself, I would find myself creating elaborate stories in my head, lies even, to avoid ever feeling shame again. And it wasn't until I was in my 50s that I realized just how much that really painful incident, that trauma, had shaped some of my behavior, and I could begin to deal with it. Shame comes from the brokenness of the world we live in, from the unhelpful, hurtful, and often unintentional messages we hear in our culture, churches, and families. I am so disappointed in you. We didn't bring you up to do things like that. You can't live like that and stay in our home. How could you? You know better than that. We are so ashamed of you. We often do anything to avoid shame. The problem is that when we shame people for their choices and behaviors, which are often ways in which they're trying to manage their deep pain, brokenness, and shame, we just make them feel even worse. And that can push them even deeper into the cycle of self-loathing and self-soothing as they try to struggle with the secret pain. When we haven't dealt with our own sense of shame, we can become perfectionists and expect unrealistic perfection from others in a broken world where none of us can be perfect. And that creates shame upon shame, secrets, hiding, pretending, trying to control others so that we feel safer and better. Or we show contempt for people who find themselves struggling with complex and troubled realities. Parents end up judging themselves by their children's behavior because that's how other people treated them. And so they try to control their children's choices and behavior with words and actions that create more shame in the hope that they will live shame-avoidant lives. Instead, they often live shame-filled lives. How Jesus dealt with shame in his encounter with broken human beings is, for me, an amazing wonder of his exquisite love. Because instead of criticism and contempt and rejection that just piles shame upon shame upon shame and crushes hopes and hearts and pushes people deeper into despair and loneliness and hopelessness, we see him relating with love and empathy. In each interaction, he starts in a place of incredible love and compassion. For Zacchaeus, the woman caught in adultery, Mary, the thief, Peter, the wayward son, his warm and loving words and welcome arms startle them into a new way of seeing themselves. They are expecting judgment, and Jesus gives them the incredible wonder of praise. They fear rejection, and he accepts them and all the broken pieces of their life and gently puts them back together again. They feel completely hopeless, and Jesus gives them more hope than they have ever known before, as he tells a story about them that they have never heard before. I love you. I know everything about you, and it doesn't change the way I see you or feel about you. You are incredibly precious to me. Let me tell you how I see you. Beautiful, whole, beloved. Open your heart. Let me pour your generous love and grace into your life until it overflows onto others. And let me start to tell a new story about you, a shame-free story that will overcome all the shame you have ever known and restore your dignity. And let me give you an amazing responsibility in my kingdom, because I can use people like you who have truly experienced my love and grace, so they will not be people who perpetuate shame. How can we be agents of dignity as Jesus was, instead of sources of shame? First, we can look at our own lives and see where the shame lies in our own hearts and listen to what Jesus tells us about how he sees us, precious and beautiful. And we may need to process our shame by talking to someone who knows how to look at others through God's eyes, with unconditional positive regard, as counselors are taught to do. Because the moment a person senses that we are looking down on them, we lose completely the capacity to help them find hope and healing. As a therapist, I can say that some of the most moving moments I have in working with people is to look at them in this way, to look at them with God's eyes and to tell them about the amazing good I see in them and watch it melt their hearts. And as we process our own shame, we can recognize the pain of that experience. And then we can offer empathy and compassion to others. And we can pour love into their lives and the words that we speak through our acceptance of their struggles, through a warm and loving face, and create a safe place for them to be honest about their own experience. And the more love and grace we can pour into this vulnerable space, the more healing can take place. We never help anyone to live a better life by making them feel worse. And we can be harbingers of hope, unveiling a new and brighter picture of their lives with the possibility of new choices, new stories. And we can be there for them when shame strikes again, to comfort and heal their stories as many times as they need, because that is what God's love does for us. And so today, as we're surrounded by people experiencing shame, hurting from shame, dealing with shame, hiding from shame, and healing from shame, may we be gentle with each other. May our own hearts be filled with the love that Jesus had for others. May we honor each other above ourselves. May we accept one another as Christ has accepted us. May we use words and actions that lift others up and give them hope, and say only what helps, each word a gift, so that we can live our lives with the dignity that comes from Christ and pass that on to everyone we meet. Amen.
Amen.